We'd like to welcome you to the 31st Annual International Law and Religion Symposium, sponsored by the BYU International Center for Law and Religion Studies. So delighted to have you with us tonight, and also the audience that will be watching the live stream. We appreciate that. Before we start, however, we would like to start with a prayer. We've invited Francesco De Lillo from Belgium to give that for us.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful this afternoon to gather this beautiful campus from all over the world, belonging to different faiths or none, to discuss the important topic of freedom of religion or belief. We're grateful that we have a religion in our life and in our societies, and we ask Thee to open our eyes that we may see how to use it for the benefit of Thy children, and as the theme of this conference, as a tool for peace building. We ask Thee to bless the speakers of this session, that they may speak clearly, convey their message, that we may be inspired to use what we learned through these conference sessions and apply those principles in our work. Please help us establish long-time friendships, that we may go out from this conference and bring the good that we learn and share it with the people we work. We ask Thee for safety and to bless us, that we may feel Thy Spirit. And we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, we have wonderful speakers this evening, but before we get to them, we have some welcomes. I'd like to just introduce briefly our university president, our law school dean, and the center director. First, we'll hear from President Shane Reese, who is the 14th president of Brigham Young University. Before his appointment, he served as an academic vice president here and as dean of the College of Physical and Mathematical Sciences. He's a statistician. I'm a lawyer, which means that I really don't understand his research, but it's fascinating because he's been working on issues, statistical models involving a wide range of issues, such as predicting the power of solar storms or finding the safest method for destroying chemical weapons, very appropriate for our topic tonight, assessing climate impact on glaciers and high mountains in Asia and Antarctica. It's also his work's been used by the U.S. Olympic volleyball team, as well as NFL's Philadelphia Eagles. That's American football. We're so delighted that he would make some time to be with us. After him, we'll have a welcome from David Moore. He's the dean of the J. Reuben Clark Law School, of which we're a part here, and we're grateful for the law school for being willing to host our group. You'll notice that there aren't any students, and that's intentional. This week is our students' break for the fall, so they've kindly let us take over. Dean Moore is a scholar of international law, development, and human rights, and U.S. foreign relations. At one point before he was a dean, he worked with our center as well. So we're sad to see him go, but grateful to have him as dean. His work has appeared in leading journals, Harvard, Columbia, Virginia, Northwestern Law Reviews. He serves on the roster of experts for the Organization for Security and Cooperation's Moscow mechanism. He's also served a brief term on the UN Human Rights Committee. He's served in various government agencies. He has clerked for the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, and is a credit to the law school where he was a graduate as well. Finally, we'll hear from Professor Brett Scharffs, who is the director of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. He's my boss. He's the Rex Ely Chair and Professor of Law here at the law school. He has earned a BSBA in International Business and an MA in Philosophy at Georgetown University, and was a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford, and then received a JD from Yale Law School, where he was senior editor of the Law Journal. He's been serving for several years as the director of our center, has had introduced amazing programs, including certificate training programs on religion and the rule of law in Beijing, Vietnam, Myanmar, is the co-author with Cole Durham of a leading casebook on law and religion, and has written over 100 articles and books and chapters and made over 300 presentations in more than 30 countries. So grateful to all three of them for being here, and we'll hear first from President Reese.
Well, it's my great pleasure as the president of Brigham Young University to welcome you all warmly to our campus. We've ordered up perfect weather so that you might enjoy the surroundings. I hope you spend some time in our glorious mountains that surround this campus while you're here. They were originally going to ask our academic vice president if he would be here to extend the welcome to all of you. But that would mean that we had 3 lawyers up front offering a welcome, and it may expend the rest of the time that you've been allocated this evening. So we've decided to add my short introduction. It is just such an incredible gathering. This is my 3rd year being here with all of you, and particularly this year, I'm thrilled to welcome you to this campus. I'm thrilled this year because your theme is so apt. It's a theme that is needed more by our society, whether we're here in the United States or in every corner of the world. A keener, deeper understanding of the role in religious freedom in providing and facilitating peace on this earth. I would submit that if we took any one of us in this room, that we would find disagreement on some very fundamental issues, things that mean very deep things to each one of us. And yet here we are, all of us gathered in this room in a spirit of unity, in a spirit of peace building. And the thing that brings us together is an appreciation for the importance of religious freedom and its purposes to help us build peace on this earth, a peace that is needed now, today, so much more than we've ever needed it in the history of the world, I would submit. And so I'm grateful to all of you for coming here to BYU with open hearts and open minds, with the desire to learn, to contribute, and all of the things you're going to do. For it is the spirit of unity that brings us together that will provide a model for the entire world, for how we can come together, bringing with us some very strongly held beliefs, and yet willing to set those beliefs in a place where we can discuss those and build unity and brotherhood and sisterhood so that we might have that peace which we all seek. And so on this campus, and I think it's apt that we're gathered here on this campus because for us, our religious identity as a university that is as committed to the things of the disciplines that are taught on this campus. We care that we produce students who are good in finance, who can go out and be great lawyers and be great accountants. We even care if they're great statisticians. But who are also conversant in the things of the Spirit. That those are not competing risks, but rather mutually reinforcing aims. That study amplifies faith. That revelation leads to deeper understanding. That these paired aspirations are in fact things that can happen simultaneously. And we could not have the mission of Brigham Young University were it not for a strong sense of religious freedom and the ability to worship according to the dictates of our conscience. And so it is with great appreciation, love, and admiration that I extend on behalf of Brigham Young University a warm welcome to all of you, and we hope you find this to be an edifying, uplifting, and rewarding experience on our campus. May God bless you all.
Thank you, President Reese, and welcome to BYU Law School. We're delighted to have you here. And I, in particular, am delighted to have you here. As Elizabeth mentioned, before I became dean, I was having far more fun as a scholar of international law, human rights, development, and foreign relations. As she mentioned, I spent some time working in international development at the U.S. Agency for International Development as their acting deputy and general counsel, had a brief term on the UN Human Rights Committee, and also worked with our International Law and Religion Center. So you are my people. I feel so at home with you. Be careful, I might ask you to move in, but I want you to know how grateful we are and excited we are to have you here. I hope that you also feel at home here. I hope that by the end of this conference, you feel a part of the BYU Law family. That's a far-reaching family. BYU Law School is a global law school. About 3/4 of our students speak at least one language besides English. That may not be uncommon in your country. It is in the United States. Many of our students have come having a significant international experience and bring a global perspective. My son, for example, who's law school bound, who's here tonight, just returned from 2 years in the Philippines. So those of you who speak Tagalog or Bisaya, I hope you'll get a chance to connect. But you'll have a chance to interact with our students. And I hope, as I said, that you feel part of the BYU Law family. In addition to our JD students, BYU Law offers a Masters of Law program for foreign attorneys. So we have those who have qualified as foreign lawyers in their own country come to BYU Law each year to study U.S. and comparative law and gain a U.S. master's degree. Those students not only benefit from their experience here, but enrich our community by sharing their experiences from not only their lives, but their legal systems with our U.S. JD students. This year we have students from China, from the Philippines, from Tanzania and Liberia, from Nigeria, from Mexico and Argentina and the West Bank. And again, they enrich our community significantly. We offer a global law seminar where our students can spend a semester abroad, interning in places like Mexico or Geneva, in Sao Paulo or South Korea. And most important for tonight, the International Center for Law and Religion Studies is housed here at BYU Law School. They perhaps won't say it, but as dean, I can say, I believe this is the world's leading academic institute on freedom of religion or belief. And we're very proud to have the International Law and Religion Center here at BYU Law School. Along with its global reach, BYU Law is nationally recognized. We recently entered the top quartile, top 25 law schools in the United States, which is quite remarkable for a school that's only been in existence for about 50 years. We just celebrated our 50-year anniversary last year. Of the other schools in that top 25, they by average started about 100 years before BYU Law School. And so much has happened here at BYU Law. Now, I could say more about our global reach and our national standing, but I want to emphasize that our highest ambition is individual. We focus on individual law students, and with those students, on the whole person. You will notice in our hallway out here some original artwork depicting the legal roles of Jesus Christ: healer, mediator, counselor, peacemaker, judge. Our mission statement says that in striving to emulate the example of Jesus Christ, we seek to be and develop people of integrity who combine faith and intellect in lifelong service to God and neighbor. That's our highest ambition. You'll notice from our mission statement that we are expressly Christian, as we are founded by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Not all our students are Christian. We often have students who are Muslim or Jewish, for example. But for all our students, whatever their faith, we seek to combine faith and intellect, heart and mind, to develop not only top-notch lawyers, but individuals who are strong in their faith, who can bless the world, starting in their own homes and communities. And our alumni now number over 7,000 who are making a difference in the world. I also want to recognize your distinction and stature. We are honored to have you here. You come from all over the world. It feels a little bit like being at the United Nations. You probably didn't know that something like the UN existed in Provo, Utah, but we will be translating in more languages than the official languages of the UN through this conference. The impact that BYU is having, as President Reese mentioned, globally, nationally, individually, is possible because of freedom of religion or belief. Because of that freedom, 50 years ago, we were able to found a faith-based law school. And now we can continue to operate a faith-based law school that is graduating individuals who will combine that faith and intellect, top-notch legal skills with strong faith to bless the world. Because of that freedom, our students, staff, faculty are able to thrive as whole people. And because of that freedom, we're able to welcome you and have rich discussions on the theme of this symposium. And so, recognizing the importance of this freedom, indeed standing as a testament to what this freedom can produce, we welcome you to the 31st Annual Symposium of the International Law and Religion Center at BYU Law School. Thank you and welcome.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Elizabeth Clark, the chair of our symposium organizing committee, C. Shane Reese, BYU's 14th president, a statistician with a heart of gold. Is that an oxymoron?
It is indeed.
Who will oversee the university's sesquicentennial celebration next year. David H. Moore, Dean of the J. Reuben Clark Law School and former Associate Director of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. Everyone who has made this event possible, our center team, our IAC, the interpreters, and our students, and many others. And especially thanks to everyone who is here attending and contributing to this symposium, many of whom have come from great distances to be with us. We are grateful. The mission of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies is to help secure the blessings of freedom of religion and belief for all people in all places. We do this by focusing on education and learning, engaging in scholarly work, developing networks and relationships, and working on law reform. We consider this annual symposium to be our flagship event each year. This is the 31st Annual International Law and Religion Symposium. And like our president, I'm particularly excited about this year's conference theme, Religious Freedom as a Tool for Peacemaking. As we begin, I'd like to make 3 brief observations about the conference theme. First, religious freedom is for all people in all places. Religious freedom gives us the opportunity to stand up for principle and to stand up for and with each other. When anyone's religious freedom is under threat or even assault, this willingness to show up for each other is one of the hallmarks of peacemakers. Second, religious freedom invites us each to live the best version of our own faith. For Latter-day Saints, this means striving to live the restored gospel of Jesus Christ more fully, more faithfully, more joyfully, more purposefully, more peacefully, and more conspicuously. Earlier, I quoted a recent address from President Russell M. Nelson, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In General Conference last year, in an address entitled Peacemakers Needed, President Nelson distinguished between conflict, which is a natural feature of life, and contention, which is a choice we make about how to respond to conflict. In that address, President Nelson said, "Contention drives away the spirit every time. Contention reinforces the false notion that confrontation is the way to resolve differences, but it never is. Contention is a choice. Peacemaking is a choice. You have your agency to choose contention or reconciliation. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always." President Nelson went on to say, "Brothers and sisters, we can literally change the world, one person and one interaction at a time. How? By modeling how to manage honest differences of opinion with mutual respect and dignified dialogue." One of the recurring themes of President Nelson's messages about becoming peacemakers is that, quote, "the transforming power of God's love will change us and empower us to become peacemakers." I think it is interesting that the first change that must take place if we are to become peacemakers is change within ourselves. We must allow ourselves to be transformed by God's love. When we remember our principal identity, beyond differences of nationality, race, religion, or anything else, is that we are children of God, this provides an important key to overcoming contention and becoming peacemakers. Third and finally, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of those who publish peace. The book of Mosiah in the Book of Mormon records the words of a prophet, Abinadi, who lived before Christ but was burned alive for his testimony of Jesus Christ. While he was testifying before a wicked king's court, Abinadi spoke movingly of those, quote, "who have published peace, who have brought good tidings of good, who have published salvation, and said unto Zion, Thy God reigneth." Later, Abinadi says something that has come to my mind again and again as we have prepared for this year's symposium, and again at Sundance and Zermatt in Midway yesterday evening. Abinadi says in Mosiah 15:17, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of those who shall hereafter publish peace, yea, from this time, henceforth, and forever." As we sit at the foot of these beautiful Rocky Mountains, how beautiful are the feet of those who will stand before us over the next 3 days, proclaiming and publishing messages of peace, messages that we hope will go forth from this time, henceforth, and forever. Welcome.
Thank you. We're in for a treat this evening. We have 3 very distinguished and eloquent speakers. I will give them introductions, but you can read their full introduction and bios for everyone else here who is speaking online on our center website, or there's a QR code on the condensed program that you can do. So I'll give short, but I want you to know a little bit about them and what they bring and the perspectives that they have. First, we'll hear from Ambassador Ismat Jahan, who served as an ambassador for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to the EU, and before that spent 40 years in the diplomatic service of Bangladesh, serving as permanent observer to the EU, as ambassador to Belgium and the EU, and permanent representative of Bangladesh to the UN. She's served throughout the world with grace and dignity and power. She has 2 master's degrees, one in economics from the University of Dhaka and another from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. And she's served as a fellow at the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University, which is the premier school of foreign service in the United States. Secondly, we'll hear from Reverend Dr. Q. English, who serves as the director of the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the United States. One of the very most senior positions available that deal with religion in the U.S. federal government. She worked closely with the White House and the Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships there. Before that, she was from New York, where she served as Deputy Director of Faith-Based Initiatives for the Governor's Office. And she also, as you can see, is magnetic and draws people together. She was instrumental in founding the faith-based office in the Office of the Mayor in New York City, on the Council of Religious Leaders in New York City, trying to address serious problems in partnership with other religious organizations. She's received master's and doctorate degrees from New York Theological Seminary, and she received its Excellence in Ministry Award. Finally, we'll hear from Elder Alexander Dushku, who serves as a General Authority 70 and as General Counsel for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and who is, yes, also one more lawyer. Elder Dushku serves as General Authority and General Counsel, as I mentioned, which means he has ecclesiastical responsibilities as well as legal ones in his spare time. He received a Bachelor of Arts from economics degrees and law school degrees from BYU. We're pleased to claim him as an alum. He worked for many years in Salt Lake City for the law firm Curtin McConkie, doing appellate and constitutional litigation. He's been involved in numerous briefs and coalitions on important religious liberty issues in the United States. In fact, I dare say there probably isn't a single issue at the federal level dealing with religious liberty that he hasn't been involved in. He's worked with legislators and advocates across the country. We're grateful tonight for also to have each of their spouses here, and we want to recognize them as well. So please, Ambassador Jahan.
Thank you very much, President Reese, Dean Moore, Professor Scharffs, and Professor Clark. Honored guests, distinguished delegates, dear students, among many of you are excellent volunteers that we have been getting the support over the last few days and hopefully in the coming few days. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm delighted to be back here in BYU Provo with very fond memories of my last visit 2 years ago. Thank you, Professor Scharffs, for the invitation, and also thanks also to your excellent BYU team, dear Elizabeth, and your team. This has afforded me an opportunity to renew friendships, old friendships, and make new ones from among an esteemed group of individuals who have gathered here today. Fellow speakers also, Reverend Dr. English, Elder Dushku. I'm very happy to be together in the opening session. It is a deep honor to have been asked to speak during this session of the 31st Annual Conference on a theme that for all of us is perhaps more relevant today than ever before, especially at a time when peace is miserably missing in our troubled world. We need peace building at all costs, at all levels. I will address the issue of religious freedom as a tool for peacemaking from the perspective of a diplomat, while referring to the role that intercultural and interreligious dialogue can play in fostering a culture of trust, empathy, and mutual understanding, and in enhancing global peace and security. Before I do so, I'd be grossly remiss if I did not thank my dear friend Francisco Di Lillo, who leads the European Union and International Affairs Office of the Church in Brussels. Without his active support and encouragement, my husband Johannes and I would not have been present here today. You will hear from Johannes at a session later this week. So it's not a thing of buy one, get one free. Ladies and gentlemen, with major conflicts raging in the world, in the Middle East as well as in Europe, and not to forget many other ongoing conflicts the world is seeing, we see that the society and the world is further getting polarized and been divided into us versus them. Horrific images of hatred, violence, destructions, killing, and maiming in record numbers all have grave humanitarian consequences. All these haunt our collective conscience on a daily basis. Peace remains ever elusive. In parallel, freedom of religion remains under constant threat. Acts of intolerance and vengeance are perpetrated in the name of religion and ethnicity. Around the world, far too many people are exposed to severe restrictions on religious freedom. In some cases, utilization or use of religious rhetoric, including by exploitation of sacred texts for pure political gain and as justification of war and violence, remains a classic example of divide and rule. Furthermore, a new kind of ultra-nationalism is gaining ground in many parts of the world, causing new conflicts to arise or to rekindle historical tensions threatening peace. Politicization of religion. I think, Professor Scharffs, we have discussed it in, 2 years ago. Politicization of religion, or what may even someone call weaponization of religion, may serve short-lived political interests. But in the ultimate, such narratives are extremely dangerous and run counter to the cause of peace and stability of the world. We must all raise our voices to press for full protection and inclusivity in our societies. In our globalized world, we must be mindful that wars and local conflicts have far-reaching and dangerous implications for global peace and security. Peace building is therefore not only a moral, ethical, and humanitarian responsibility, but it is a political imperative for us all, individually and collectively. Today, more than ever, we need dialogues and sincere efforts at all levels towards cessation of conflicts and wars. Bridging the differences, be it on political, cultural, or religious grounds, is very important. Building trust is not easy. It requires patience. First and foremost, it requires the determination to engage in meaningful dialogue to resolve tensions. Dialogues in resolving conflict situations and societal tensions can only be successful if free speech principles are applied in engaging with diverse voices. We must also assert the role of media in building peaceful coexistence, and we must not allow it to be used for misleading or deliberate rumor mongering, for inciting tensions in society. Fake news can only add fuel to fire. Power balances between different nations can hinder meaningful dialogue and cooperation. Peace-building dialogues can be influenced by geopolitical and geostrategic considerations. We sadly do witness such an attitude in multilateral discourses, even at the level of the United Nations, where, unfortunately, often we see the will of the majority is held hostage by the power play of a few. Just a few days ago, about 10 days, nations across the world assembled at the United Nations in New York, urging for peace and calm and cessation of wars and conflicts. What unfortunately still lacks is the desired unanimity. There is a Japanese legend. This I just picked up on my way here, flipping through In-Flight magazine. That says, and I would like to quote, "If you get on the wrong train, get off at the nearest station. The longer it takes you to get off, the more expensive the return trip will be." I'd like to use this as a metaphor. If we are on a wrong train to peace and conflict resolution, it is better that we, the global community, get off right away, get off the train right away, and get on to the right train that takes us fastest to peace. Peace delayed is peace denied. Freedom of religion can and does play a crucial role in peace building by providing a space for diverse voices where every community feels valued in itself and feel included and represented. In contrast, in the absence of freedom of religion, discrimination and persecution on religious ground can fuel extremism, as groups may radicalize in response to perceived or real threats on account of their beliefs. In addressing challenges to religious freedom, there is a need to build relations among diverse religions based on mutual respect and deeper understanding of each other. I often say, it's off. I think the microphone is off. Can you hear? Sorry? Okay. If you hear me, that's fine, but I thought it was, it is off. Can I request some help? Okay, I will wait.
The interpreters are upstairs, and
Yeah.
so they cannot hear you until the microphone is working.
Yes,
Yeah, so just
I will wait. Thank you. Patience will take us there. Yeah.
Check.
Sorry? Okay, here I am. Thank you. Let me repeat the last sentence that I was on. In addressing challenges to religious freedom, there is a need to build relations among diverse religions based on mutual respect and a deeper understanding of each other. Here I would like to say that I always mention there's a need for mutual respect and not just mere tolerance. Tolerance is just, is I tolerate. But when you say mutual respect, it goes beyond. That's what I think, that we need mutual respect for each other, for our religious views or beliefs. Last year, I was visiting a European city. I was pleasantly surprised to hear the church bells and azan, the call for prayer, almost simultaneously coming respectively from a nearby church and a mosque. To me, this spoke volumes about religious freedom in motion. The document of Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together, co-signed in Abu Dhabi in 2019 by His Holiness Pope Francis and Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed Al-Tayyib, underlines the values of tolerance and fraternity that are promoted and encouraged by religions. The document is not just for Christians or Muslims. It is inclusive of each human being, recognizing that human fraternity and peace involves every single person. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in January 2022, if I'm correct about that year, released a new 35-page pamphlet designed to enhance understanding between those of Muslim and Latter-day Saint faiths. It illustrates common themes found in Islamic and Latter-day Saint beliefs and practices. I believe these are important pledges to promote reciprocal understanding and peaceful coexistence of diverse religious groups. Until very recently, I was the permanent observer of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to the European Union. The OIC, comprising 57 member states covering 4 continents, claims to be the collective voice of the Muslim world. The cause of Palestine and peace in the Middle East remains pivotal to the joint OIC actions and remains a source of unity and solidarity among the member states. One of the key priorities of the organization is the promotion of intercultural and interreligious dialogue for peaceful coexistence. The OIC has done and is engaged in interfaith and intercultural dialogues in many of its member states, and has been part of core groups and institutions and initiators along with the UN, and as well as networking with religious leaders and peacemakers in their respective countries to create peace at the grassroots levels in several areas, especially in conflict situations. Ladies and gentlemen, religious leaders and institutions have a key role in engaging the political leadership for dialogue and negotiation for resolving conflicts. They can very well act even as mediators in peace-building efforts, drawing on shared values of peace, nonviolence, and human dignity found in all religions. Interfaith dialogue in post-conflict settings is also crucial in conciliation efforts and in healing wounds from past wrongs. At local and national levels, such efforts towards peace building to be all-encompassing must not be strictly limited to religious institutions and faith-based groups, but should also involve secular civil society organizations, the community leaders, the youth, and women. The youth in particular can be key actors in achieving freedom of religion or belief, in fighting global injustices and lasting global peace, and ensuring lasting global peace. Schools can, and also your universities can send a strong message of inclusion and respect for societal diversity. And I'm very happy to know and see that BYU Provo and also the other BYUs, I have been to Hawaii, they're excellent examples of diverse, students coming from various countries, and they are engaged in peaceful coexistence. Women's role in peacekeeping and peace building is an important issue. The UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security will commemorate its 25th years on 31st October 2025. I take a modicum of pride in saying that it was during the month of Bangladesh's presidency of the Security Council in the year 2000 the resolution was adopted. It confirms the important role of women in the prevention and resolutions of conflicts, and also their participation in peace negotiation, peace building, and in post-conflict reconciliation and reconstruction efforts. At the international level, respect for religious freedom can lead to stronger diplomatic ties and collaboration between nations, thereby contributing to global peace. Conversely, countries that violate religious freedom can face international isolation, which can aggravate regional and global tensions. To conclude, let me stress that promoting trust across religions and states for peace-building efforts is not an easy task, especially when international relations are guided by strict national and geopolitical and geostrategic interest, and not necessarily by moral, humanitarian, theological, or ideological considerations. The path may not be easy, but we must not falter in our shared commitment to advance the cause of freedom of religion and global peace and security. The best approach to peace building remains in silencing the guns, and allowing voice of diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiations to be heard. It is a sad commentary on our collective conscience that today a disproportionate amount of funds is spent on armament, particularly lethal weapons of mass destruction, which, if released, If the funds are released, these could have been used for peaceful coexistence of humanity, global peace building, sustainable development, and poverty eradication. I thank you for your kind attention. I don't know if I have really crossed my time. Elizabeth is smiling. Sorry for that. I wish you all great success during this symposium. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Jahan, for your rich insights, and thank you. I'm so honored to join my fellow speakers, Alexander Dushko. Also want to thank President Shane Reese, Dean David Moore, and for the invitation from Director Brett Scharffs and Associate Director Elizabeth Clark. Thank you for making this day possible. I'm honored and humbled to be before you today, to be among such great leaders and influencers and theologians. Again, I am indeed honored. So as I think about my journey, it was my faith that inspired me to exercise my religious freedom for the good of mankind. But it didn't come without a price. And although I grew up in a religious household, it was my experience in that household that moved me to grow deeper in my faith. I grew up in a small place called Spanish Harlem in New York City, in Carver Projects, where the situation wasn't so great in my home, where I witnessed my father, who came back from the war, who had severe PTSD and had more medicine in our kitchen cabinet than we did dishes, and who succumbed to his death through that PTSD and mental illnesses. When I looked at my brother, who pushed the shopping carts down the streets of New York City, saying things that weren't to be repeated. When I think about my brother, who pretty much lived and died in prison, who was a heroin addict, contracted HIV/AIDS through shared needles from being beaten up in prison. When I think about my two sisters who were crack addicts, the other two who were alcoholics, and my brother who was the heroin addict. When I think about my 14-year-old nephew who died by suicide while his 10-year-old watched, his 10-year-old brother that was. When I think about myself at 10 years old, wondering why I was ever born, and that wasn't due to what I wanted to be in life, it was suicidal ideations. It was because what went on in the house stayed in the house, and some things needed to come out of the house. We all have our why, but this is my why. It is my why I did what I did years ago in New York, and this is why I dedicate myself to serving others. When I myself, as a youth, did not experience or did not understand what it meant to be served as part of humanity, I did not know what religious beliefs and religious freedom could truly offer. It is now what propels me and drives me and encourages me and brings me joy and hope and fulfillment. It is my God-given purpose. And we all know that religious freedom is a human right. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights asserts that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Where there is true religious freedom, there is freedom of worship, freedom from discrimination, freedom to even change religion, and the right to teach and share our beliefs and faith, true religious freedom. And we know that many countries around the world face challenges related to religious freedom, where individuals may experience oppression or persecution based on their beliefs. Some regions and countries are often cited for significant restrictions on religious freedom. We know who many of them are, including some represented here in this room. It has been extremely hard in countries where government closely monitor religious groups and limits the activities of non-state sanctioned organizations. While there has been some improvements and reforms in some countries, the challenges continue. The government's influence over religious practices continues to limit true freedom of belief. Therefore, when and where appropriate, we as religious leaders and others must call on governments to uphold human rights obligations. Religious leaders in countries facing oppression and restrictions on religious freedom can play a vital role in advocating for change. So today I stand before you from the posture of one whose nation does embrace religious freedom, not without its challenges, however, to speak about a force that has the power to transcend boundaries, heal wounds, and unite humanity, and that is the power of interfaith cooperation, which I see as a fruit of religious freedom. In countries that experience religious freedom, you find leaders engaging in interfaith dialogue to promote understanding and cooperation among different religious communities. This can help reduce tensions and foster a spirit of mutual respect. Religious leaders can use their religious freedom in a variety of constructive ways that contribute to society, promote understanding, and foster positive change. We find justice and equity addressing issues like poverty. We find these religious leaders using their platform to advocate for human rights, social justice, and equity, addressing issues like poverty and discrimination. In these same countries, you find them organizing and participating in community service initiatives, addressing local needs such as food insecurity, education, and healthcare. This demonstrates the practical application of their faith's teaching. You find them providing educational programs that inform both adherents and the broader community about their beliefs and their values and practices, promoting tolerance and understanding. They model ethical behavior and moral integrity in both personal and public life, offering guidance and support to individuals and communities facing moral dilemmas. They advocate for and support marginalized and vulnerable populations, including religious minorities, refugees, and the poor, ensuring their voices are heard and their rights protected. Again, because of their religious freedom, they aren't inactive, they are proactive. They create safe spaces by establishing environments where individuals can explore their faith, ask questions, and discuss their beliefs without fear or judgment or persecution, and they promote peace. They actively work towards conflict resolution and peace building within communities, drawing on religious teaching that emphasize forgiveness, reconciliation, and compassion. By leveraging their religious freedom in these ways, religious leaders can foster a more inclusive, compassionate, and just society, contributing positively to the communities they serve. And as I think about the countries that are still struggling, where this may not be their narrative, and who may be in this very room, let me encourage you in reminding others of several religious leaders around the world who have played significant roles in improving religious freedom in their regions or country. It was a journey, and the journey wasn't and isn't easy. We look at South Africa, the Anglican bishop and anti-apartheid activist Desmond Tutu, who advocated for human rights, healing, and reconciliation in post-apartheid South Africa. He emphasized the importance of forgiveness and dialogue among different faiths and communities, promoting a vision of equality that helped foster religious and social freedoms. His advocacy for human rights and interfaith dialogue helped foster a more inclusive society where religious freedoms are respected. Again, we have a long way to go. In India, we have various interfaith initiatives led by figures like Mahatma Gandhi, and more recently, organizations such as the Gandhi Peace Foundation have worked to promote tolerance and acceptance among the country's diverse religious communities. These efforts have contributed to a more open dialogue about religious coexistence, despite ongoing challenges. Then we have Tunisia, following the Arab Spring, with religious leaders and civil Society organizations work together to promote a more secular and pluralistic approach to governance. This has led to a relative increase in religious tolerance, allowing for greater freedom of expression among different faiths. So these leaders have made significant contributions to promoting religious freedoms through their advocacy and dialogue and commitment to social justice, often addressing the intersection of religious identity and human rights in their work. And as a result, these countries have seen positive shifts from religious persecution to greater acceptance of religious freedom influenced by interfaith and religious leaders. These countries demonstrate that the efforts of interfaith and religious leaders can significantly influence the trajectory toward greater religious freedom and acceptance, despite the complexities and challenges that may still exist. I emphasize they still exist. But across the globe, faith communities have come together to respond to crisis. These stories remind us that change is possible when we work together with the shared vision of a more just and compassionate world. This movement is dear to my heart. As an interfaith coalition builder and strategist, I like to see myself, as others do, as a bridge builder. I have seen the strength in the power of interfaith across our nation, beginning in New York City, where we would stand together, shoulder to shoulder, on issues that plagued our city and ultimately our nation. In a world where differences often divide us, the power of interfaith community cooperation lies in our shared values and collective action to build a more just and compassionate world. Overall, the religious freedom enshrined in the U.S. Constitution has enabled a vibrant civil society where diverse religious and cultural activities can flourish, fostering community engagement and cooperation across different groups. In New York City, I serve on the Commission of Religious Leaders, also known as CORAL, along with Cardinal Timothy Dolan, Imam Tahir, Reverend Dr. A.R. Bernard, Bishop Victor Brown, and Elder David Buckner, who's here, right here at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We miss him, and others. We were and are intentional in what we do when it comes to showing up as one for the well-being of all New Yorkers. I also established the Bronx Clergy Roundtable, the Bronx Clergy Criminal Justice Roundtable, as well as the New York City Clergy Roundtable during my time in New York. Today, there are many interfaith organizations that are thriving, that are being led by incredible individuals. And when it came to fighting for criminal justice reform, it was the interfaith community that showed up as one on the steps of City Hall, demanding justice for wrongful deaths and incarceration and convictions, and to witness laws being changed on behalf of all New Yorkers. When it came to holding our elected officials accountable, it was the interfaith community that showed up and collectively drafted a document we call the Covenant, that outlined what we expected from our candidates before we would support them, whether openly or privately. It documented our expectations in fair housing, criminal justice reform, in health, mental health, education, and more. We brought thousands together to hold forums to assure those in power knew that we were standing together. Why? Because we recognize that the societal ills that we face in our state and our nation affected all of us, regardless of religious affiliations, regardless of socioeconomic status. It was the power of interfaith that moved them at the end even to form the faith-based office in the city of New York. When we saw the injustices on poor wages, the interfaith community was called upon to join the fight and see change. We showed up. We must show up. We showed up because if we say we are people of faith, then what pains the heart of God surely must pain us. when our houses of worship were under attack because of religious discrimination and hatred, we showed up as one, as if it was our house of worship under attack. The attack of one was the attack to all, and it was not to be tolerated. That was the power of interfaith. When there was anti-Semitic attacks, we showed up. When there was vandalism of mosques and physical attacks exhibiting extreme Islamophobia, we showed up. We showed up when there was vandalism on the Hindu temple, discrimination against religious garbs, challenges to religious practices, and hate crimes against our Sikh brothers and sisters. We showed up as one. And this is what we do with our religious freedom. This is how we exercise it. We use our collective, not siloed, but collective authority and influence for the betterment of all humanity and threats against our religious freedom, laying aside our differences in religion and leading with compassion, justice, service, and promoting peace. In a world often marked by division and discord, the concept of interfaith collaboration offers a beacon of hope, and is up to us to keep hope alive. Because our dialogue is not merely about discussing our differences, it is about celebrating our shared values and finding common ground. It's about recognizing that despite our diverse religious belief, we all strive for a better world, one marked by peace, justice, and compassion. The essence of interfaith cooperation lies in our ability to listen and learn from one another. When individuals from different faith traditions come together, they bring a wealth of perspectives, wisdom, and experiences that enrich our collective understanding. This dialogue fosters mutual respect and helps dismantle the barriers of ignorance and prejudice that often lead to conflict. When faith communities join forces, they address social issues with a broader and more inclusive approach, from tackling poverty and inequality to advocating for human rights and environmental stewardship. Interfaith partnerships harness a collective strength that is far greater than the sum of its parts. Through shared initiative and collaborative projects, we demonstrate that our differences can be a source of strength rather than division. Yet, as I come to a close, the journey of interfaith cooperation is ongoing. It requires us to move beyond mere tolerance to genuine acceptance and partnership. It challenges us to embrace diversity, not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth and enrichment. It calls us to be active participants in creating a world where all voices are heard and valued. And as we reflect on the power of interfaith cooperation, let us be inspired by the potential it holds for transforming our world. Let us commit ourselves to building bridges of understanding, fostering empathy, and working together for the common good. In doing so, we not only honor our own traditions, but also contribute to a more inclusive and peaceful global community. Today, I challenge each of us to not lie our differences aside, but instead embrace our differences. Let every man, in my sacred text says, be fully persuaded in his own mind. What is right for one man may be wrong for another, so let us not judge one another, but instead let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace and things wherewith one may edify another. For the kingdom of God is not meat and drink, but includes peace. Therefore, follow peace with all men and work to use the power of our religious freedom to promote peace and do good for all humanity, regardless of one's religion. And let's always remember to embrace the power of love, which without there is no true movement toward peace. So in conclusion, we have the power to transform our world, one nation, one region, one state, one city, one community at a time. So may we continue to work together with faith and determination, knowing that through our unity and compassion, we can create a brighter and more just future for all. Let's continue to lead with love and the light of hope. And remember that as long as there is breath, there is hope. And my hope is that we too may raise our collective voices one day from the mountaintop as we pray for a world that embraces true religious freedom. To echo the words of Martin Luther King, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. God bless you.
Well, President Reese and Dean Moore and Professor Scharffs, Professor Clark, and friends, I am grateful to be with you this evening at this remarkable gathering. I bring you the greetings and the warm welcome of the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We will have an opportunity to meet with church leaders later this week on Wednesday afternoon at a special luncheon at church headquarters in Salt Lake City. I look forward to breaking bread together. And thank you, Ambassador Jahan and Reverend Dr. English, for your profound words of insight and wisdom. Now, in what universe is it fair for me to have to follow them? In fact, before we got going, I was talking to Reverend English and talking to her husband, and I said, what on earth am I going to do? And he said, the best thing to do would be to have a song to sort of break the mood. And I said, would you be willing to sing? And he said, no. I'm going to ask him again. Would you be willing to sing? Okay. Well, I'm not going to do it because you'd all run screaming out of here. But thank you, both of you, for your experience, your passion, your wisdom, and for your hope. Because we need hope in this great work and in this great cause. We gather together from locations all over the world, from numerous nations, ethnicities, backgrounds, faiths, and every other category imaginable. And yet, despite the possibility of conflict inherent in any kind of gathering of this nature, we are united as friends in a common belief in religious freedom, and that religious freedom can be a force for making peace. Now, while there are many, many reasons to despair, there are also many reasons for hope. At the outset of this conference, I would offer a few thoughts and reflections about the cause of my own hope for religious freedom, and on how religious freedom can indeed be a tool for peacemaking. Consider these basic statements of religious belief. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Shalom, peace. Pray to God to be among those who seek to live peacefully with others. You may have recognized similar pleas for peace, accepted as basic truths by Christians, Jews, Muslims, and those of many, many other faiths. Jesus taught us to turn the other cheek and to forgive those who sin against us until 70 times 7. Maimonides, the famed Jewish rabbi and scholar, taught that the whole Torah was given in order to promote peace in the world. The Prophet Muhammad taught peace as well. I have just quoted his counsel about seeking to live peacefully with others. I could go on at length about the universality of peace as a principle we see taught across the world's many different faith traditions. Peace with oneself, peace with God, peace with one's neighbor. And nearly everybody wants peace, or at least says they want peace. That assuredly is a powerful common ground. Peace is a goal, a hope, a righteous end. But it is not only a theological principle, but a concrete aspiration for which Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Zoroastrians, and members of every faith community, every faith tradition in the world of which I am aware strive. How many prayers for peace, for a life in harmony with others have been uttered throughout history? Surely innumerable. Unfortunately, however, as we have heard and as we all know, peace is often elusive. It's hard to achieve and even harder to keep when there's disagreement or differences of belief, particularly on matters of deep feeling such as faith. Peace may seem, for some at least, impossible. And yet, differences of belief need not lead to disharmony. Differences of belief can even unite. But that's possible only if there's a shared framework for how we address such differences and how we value those with whom we disagree. This is particularly true, I believe, in matters of religion. Religious belief and practice are central to individual purpose and identity. They resonate deeply in a way that other beliefs don't. People will fight for their faith and their ability to practice it to their very last breath. And when a person's faith is disregarded or disrespected or looked down upon, it can cut more deeply than almost anything else. Religious intolerance, therefore, has always been a tremendous source of strife, perhaps history's most profound and enduring source of strife. Religious liberty, by contrast, can be a tremendous source of peace. Just as oppression breeds resentment, liberty and respect can lead to trust, mutual understanding, loyalty, and other profound social goods. The way to achieve that peace for which so many faith traditions strive is to respect each other enough to allow others to live their different faiths openly and freely, to see within each a spark of divinity and goodness with whom we have a deep and profound commonality that no other force in this world can deny or diminish. In what follows, I hope to lay out a few clear links between religious liberty and peacemaking. You will no doubt explore many other such linkages as the conference proceeds. These are just some of my own preliminary thoughts for your consideration as you deliberate together. Understanding the connection between religious freedom and peacemaking begins, as I hinted earlier, with an understanding of why religious belief and practice hold such an important place for so many people. Perhaps unique among categories of belief, religious conviction responds to the deepest desire of the human soul. Religion in all its diversity provides human beings a conduit to find and embrace God's truth, to know and be known by Him, and to live one's life in harmony with His will. Religion is not a hobby. It is not like bowling. It is not like knitting. It is not a social club. It is not even a sport like soccer, although some people think soccer is a religion. It is rather a central element, for many the central element of personal identity and an all-encompassing influence on the day-to-day lives of billions of people on this planet. Deeply held religious beliefs are a defining component of their lives and their very identities, our lives and our very identities. For this reason, as Professor Robert George of Princeton University has eloquently explained, religious freedom at its core means something far deeper and more profound than communities grudgingly tolerating each other. It means the right to be who we truly are as human beings. Now, given the centrality of religious devotion to human identity and experience, efforts to suppress religion inevitably lead to conflict. Suppression of religion breeds resentment. It breeds distrust, alienation, hostility. Such feelings break down social cohesion, which in turn leads to conflict and instability. Social science research confirms this common sense point. Studies show that restrictions on religious freedom increase civil conflict, religiously motivated violence, political corruption, and societal unrest. Indeed, studies show that government restrictions on religion are the strongest predictor of religious violence and conflict. No surprise there. The record of government regimes that suppress religious liberty illustrates how suppression foments social distrust with numerous adverse consequences. Trust, of course, is an essential ingredient for social cohesion and economic growth. It reduces transaction costs, strengthens domestic governance, strengthens democratic governance, and improves both the efficiency and honesty of public administration. Policies that impede social trust, such as religious oppression and discrimination, therefore hinder economic prosperity and community well-being. By contrast, studies show that respect for religious liberty fosters social and political connectedness. When believers see that their faith and practices are treated with respect by others, that conveys an important lesson about treating members of other faiths and all members of society with that same respect. Respect fosters respect and gratitude and mutual understanding, trust, restraint, loyalty, and even love. People have a natural disposition to do unto others as has been done unto them. So we can break cycles of distrust and violence. We can get off that train that the ambassador mentioned. Respect for religious practices of others involves multiple facets. Of course, we must respect faith communities and allow them the autonomy to freely establish their doctrine and their liturgy. It includes safeguarding the freedom of believers to gather for worship, educate their children, select leaders, and establish rules for participation in worship practices. In saying this, in speaking about the communitarian elements of religious freedom, I caution those who would reduce religious belief and practice to merely a matter of individual religious exercise, as important as that is. Religion for many, and perhaps most people, is a communal experience in which believers gather to share and live their lives and strengthen one another. These communal aspects of religious practice yield their own benefits to society, including by helping worshipers learn how to work through problems in a respectful manner and fostering camaraderie among individuals who may otherwise have very different backgrounds and experiences. Religion serves as a builder of community and connectedness and an incubator of how to do so not only within the narrow religious community itself, but beyond. The link between religious liberty and human flourishing is, once again, not only common sense, but also established by social science research. A study published by the Cambridge University Press, for example, found statistically significant correlations between religious liberty and a variety of social, political, and economic markers, including freedom of press, gender equality, civil liberties, economic freedom, lower inflation, no idea how that works, and higher income for both men and women. Another study found that 10 of the world's Economic Forum's 12 pillars of national competitiveness are stronger in countries with low restrictions on religious freedom. These include better primary education, better higher education, greater technological readiness, greater innovation, better infrastructure, improved market efficiency, greater business sophistication, better market development, stronger institutional environments, and greater labor market efficiency. That is quite a list as a byproduct of religious liberty, which builds bonds of respect and even bonds of friendship and love. Religious liberty benefits therefore much more than just believers. Of course, religious individuals benefit when their faith is respected and they don't face persecution for living their beliefs, but the rest of society benefits too. Religious liberty promotes stability, mutual respect, and the conditions necessary for everyone to thrive. It fosters connectedness and understanding, social, political, and economic. It makes possible a pluralistic society where diversity of thought leads to innovation and new, improved ways of approaching old problems. Religious liberty constitutes articles of peace, a social pact, allowing those of conflicting worldviews to live in harmony. Elder D. Todd Christofferson, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, explained the ties between religious liberty and social peace in an address to an interfaith audience like this a few years ago. He explained that religious freedom is the cornerstone of peace in a world with many competing philosophies. It gives us all space to determine for ourselves what we think and believe, to follow the truth that God speaks to our hearts. It allows diverse beliefs to coexist, protects the vulnerable, and helps us negotiate our conflicts. Now, I began my remarks tonight by quoting a number of powerful faith leaders, 3 of the countless faith leaders who have called on their followers to be peacemakers. Again, the command to seek peace is common to the world's many faith traditions. Although we must sometimes defend our rights in court and other government forums as people of faith, the imperative remains to promote and live together in a just and dignified peace. It is not enough merely to win for our particular faith community, as tempting as that can be. A win for us that does not include justice for them will not lead to peace. To be peacemakers, we must find practical, livable ways to honor and respect the beliefs and practices of all. I'd like to just take a moment now to explain why peacemaking in matters of religion is particularly urgent for members of my faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Given our forebears' violent experience with religious persecution in the church's early years, Latter-day Saints are particularly attuned to the need to seek peace with other faith communities, other denominations. Our own articles of faith state, we claim the privilege of worshiping Almighty God according to the dictates of our own conscience and allow all men the same privilege. Let them worship how, where, or what they may. Church scripture affirms that ultimately no government can exist in peace except such laws are framed and held inviolate as will secure to each individual the free exercise of conscience. Latter-day Saints thus honor our heritage and our doctrine when we seek to mend fences and pursue paths of peace. In the context of religious liberty, this means treating all denominations, all faith communities with respect, seeking to expand understanding of our shared values, and giving all believers the space they need to find and embrace God's truth and live their life in harmony with His will. In conclusion, respect for religious liberty signals that we honor each other's most deeply held beliefs and that we are committed as human beings to live together in respect and harmony. If we ever hope to find peace in this very conflicted world, we must learn to reach across religious divides and political and ideological divides, whatever they may be, and embrace each other as fellow seekers of God and His truth. And the first step in doing so is honoring and respecting basic religious freedom as a fundamental principle of human rights and a just society. On a personal note, I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. Acknowledging my many, many failings in this regard, and they are numerous, I have dedicated my life to following Him. As I ponder what that means in my life, I am ever more aware that one of the titles of Jesus, of the Jesus that I revere, know, and love, is the Prince of Peace. To him, to that cause, and to each of you who also desires peace in liberty, I pledge my loyalty and my very best efforts. May God bless us in this noble cause. Thank you.
Thank you so much to each of our wonderful presenters. We've been richly fed tonight. We'd like to thank you all, encourage you to join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And now outside and downstairs, there's a reception. We hope you'll enjoy. For those who are going back to the hotel, whenever you're ready, there'll be shuttles along this side of the law school. So again, thank you so much. One more round of applause, please.